What is going on, shrimp keepers? Good morning to all of you. Good afternoon to some of you. I see Petrus, good afternoon to you from South Africa. That's crazy. Well, sorry for running a couple minutes behind, but it's always a busier morning than you expect. Today was a little extra busy, but it's all good. So let's see. We got Will in the house. He said, educate us, Rob. Good morning, Will. IB Sam, good morning. Beta Ops, Chris Ricker, Unit T1395, the other Tiffany, Mark, good morning. Good morning. Daryl Deemer, good morning, my friend. Always good to see you guys. And Tiffany, glad you made a live stream. They are blue bolts, bro. Get them. I love it. So good morning to all of you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry for my desk being a mess. It's just been a crazy morning. So let me try to get some of this stuff out of the way so it doesn't look as bad. But yes, we're ready. Got my coffee. So happy Wednesday, happy shrimp day, happy hump day, whatever you want to call it. I hope you guys are having a great week thus far. I know for us, this is like my first official week, like back in the swing of things since our vacation. Last week was like, honestly, it was just a crazy week. I was gone Thursday, Friday, so I wasn't here. And so, it just wasn't a full week. I didn't feel like I got back into the swing of things really. And so now I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back in the swing of things. Yesterday I had to help my dad with electrical for a little bit, which wasn't too bad, but definitely throws off the week a little bit too. So tonight is Wednesday, so I always go to grandma's on Wednesday. So I'm super excited to go see my grandma, my aunt, play some board games with them. Hopefully kick their butt in some cards. And so it's Wednesday's a good day. And I just heard Survivor is finally coming back on Wednesday, which is super exciting. We've always watched Survivor. It's a big thing in our family. And finally it's returning since COVID. I think it starts up in September, which is, it's going to be good. What else new is going on before we get into today's topic? Aquashella Chicago is coming up super fast. It's 4 weeks away from this coming Saturday. So literally 4 weeks from today, I will be in Chicago. And so I'm looking forward to that. There's a lot of planning left to do. I know we've been, meeting as the fish tube booth with some other influencers and trying to get a good game plan. Trying to schedule out a live stream for the entire weekend. We're trying to get some little events going on, couple competitions, some displays, things like that. So there's a lot going into Aquashella this year, but it's gonna be good. And then we got a fish order in this morning. One of my employees actually wasn't feeling good today, so he had to go home. So that kind of threw a wrench in the day a little bit. But we're always about, if you're not feeling good, go home, get feeling better, and then we'll go from there. Especially in the times of COVID. We don't ever want to risk it. So, so it's a good day. Tyler is still in training for the customer service position. He's actually like right there. So he's hearing everything we're saying. But it's really going good. I mean, we're in a great place, feeling great about where we're at and where we're going. And so, it's good. It's really good. But how are you guys this morning? Is everybody doing good? Is everybody still staying in their shrimp tanks with the nice weather? We still hanging out inside, or is everybody getting outside and vacationing? Like, what's going on with you guys? Ooh, so we could get right into the conversation. So I know Sam said something. This discussion is perfect timing. Picked up my first Caridina, 5 beautiful crystal blacks at a swap this weekend in a 3-gallon cube with some snails. So far, so good. So today, what we're actually doing is we are going to be talking about why Caridina shrimp are actually easier than Neocaridina shrimp. And so it's probably not what you would expect, but overall, Caridina are much easier to keep than Neocaridina, which sounds so backwards from what we're taught, right? And so Michael said, if Neos are tough, why do I have thriving colonies in every aquarium? So Neos are not tough. Neither are Caridina. in my opinion. Now, granted, I've done shrimp for a long time, so obviously they're a lot easier for me than some people. But yeah, Caridina are actually much easier, and we'll get into some reasons why. All my crystals, poor Zans, all my crystals just died in the heat waves. This better be good. Oh man, yeah, heat wave is not something to mess around with. Yeah, I guess in that sense, if we're just looking at temperature, Neos are more tolerant to temperature swings than Caridina are. So yeah, you got me there. I'll give you that. So as far as temperature, Neos are definitely easier. But Caridina, if you can maintain, 72 to 68 degrees, they're definitely going to be easier. Joshua said, great timing on this. I just set up 6 10-gallons on a rack and want to do shrimp in them all. I've only ever kept Neos, Ghosts, and Amanos, so might have to give Caridina a try. So let me jump right in here. So Caridina, if you look at Neocaridina and Caridina, the reason that people say that Neocaridina are easier is simply for the fact that Neos can tolerate a wider range of parameters. So if you're going to go to a swap meet or an auction and you just got an itching to buy some shrimp and you buy some Neos, you throw them in your tank, there's a 75% chance they're going to breed, they're going to do fine. If you go and you do the same thing for Caridina, there's like a 20 to 25% chance they're going to do well, right? Or maybe a 30% chance they'll do well, but a 1% chance that they'll actually breed. And so as far as, just winging it, Neos would be the best shrimp to wing it with. But if you're going to do a shrimp tank setup right, so if you're going to take the time and plan it out, Caridina are going to be easier every single time. So the hardest thing with Caridina shrimp is the initial setup. That's everything. Like if you take the time to learn how to do RO water and remineralize it, if you take the time to get the right substrate and set the tank up and have a consistent environment, and you buy Caridina, they're going to do good 100% of the time, 99% of the time. And so the biggest difference is the setup. So Caridina, you actually have to think about the setup. You have to plan it out and do it right. Whereas Neocaridina, you can kind of just be like, I'm just going to try it. The other huge difference is Neocaridinas in general, especially if you're going to buy like imported shrimp. So like for us, when we bring in Neocaridina versus Caridina, we know for our Caridina, we're barely going to lose any. We might lose, 5% at the most over the course of like all the shrimp that we brought in. And Neocaridina, we could easily lose 20% if we don't do things right. We could lose, there's times where we lost 50%. And so the health of Caridina versus Neocaridina is just so far in one direction. Like if Neos are a 1 on health on a scale 1 to 10, Caridinas would be like an 8. And so as far as diseases, parasites, all that, you never see that on a Caridina shrimp. You never find parasites. You never find diseases. I mean, you can get the occasional bacteria infection. And so really what it comes down to is like when you buy Caridina shrimp, they're going to be healthier than Neocaridina shrimp 9 times out of 10. Just because to breed Caridina shrimp, they have to be healthy. To breed Neos, you can throw them in a pond outside, and next thing you know, you have thousands of them. And so it all comes down to that little thing. And so a lot of the reason is people are like, oh, like Caridina are so much more expensive than Neos. And that's not true, because you could buy a crystal red for less than you could buy like a fantasy blue or a green jade or a black rose or something like that. And so really the huge difference here is only the fact that for a Caridina tank, you have to plan it out. You have to get the right water, and then you have to get the right substrate. But once you do just those 2 things, easy. They are the easiest thing to keep. You put some plants in there, like you provide them with a stable environment. Those things are going to breed like crazy. Everyone looks at it and just thinks like, oh, like shrimp are hard, they're sensitive, which they can be. But if you do like these 10 steps, like 1 through 10, you're going to be successful every single time. And so I always like tell people, don't do this or don't do that, simply because like, if they stay close to that, they're going to be successful. But yeah, so it's crazy that so many people are afraid of the Caridina shrimp when they're easier to keep than the Neocaridina shrimp. Again, it's just the cost of getting started. So like, with Neos, you could just throw them in a tank you already have, get cheap sand and use tap water. And then you got a tank for, if you already have the tank, you can spend $10 and you got a tank ready for Neocaridina. But for Caridina, you got to buy the substrate, which, $30 a bag for 5 pounds or whatever. And then, you got to buy the remineralizer. So you got to get GH specific remineralizer for shrimp. And next thing you know, you could easily be $100 in before you even have the shrimp. And then you got to buy the shrimp on top of that. So now you're at $200. That might be a little expensive. And at the end of the day, everyone says Caridina is really hard. So is it really worth it? And so that's kind of the mentality that people have, is like, I could just buy some Neos, throw them in my tank. If they do great, that's awesome. If they don't, it is what it is. And so yeah. So a lot of people, like the dreaded fish keeper said, I find Neos easier myself. But and so it's true. So many people find Neos easier just simply because, like, if you're going to put them in your tank and not really monitor them too much, like, yeah, I could see how Neos would be easier for sure. But at the end of the day, if you look at providing the perfect setup for Neos, providing the perfect setup for Caridina all day is so much easier. And that's with us, like being in the business for 7 to 8 years at this point. I've been in the hobby for longer than that, and importing hundreds of thousands of shrimp. It's just we see a lot. And so I know, like, if I'm gonna import a bunch of Caridina shrimp, I don't even really have to worry about it. Like, I know that they're gonna do well, and I know that if we don't sell them right away, like they can stay in the tanks for a couple months. Like, it's not a big deal. Whereas like Neocaridina, like, we're treating them with medicine, we're checking them for parasites, like, bacterial infections, got to make sure we're on top of it, feeding them the right amount. Like, there's so much more effort that goes into Neocaridina to make sure they're healthy than Caridina. Like Caridina, literally we could import them and then tomorrow they're healthy. Like, you could sell them right away. We still hold them for 30 days because we want to make sure they have time to like molt and get fed and used to the parameters they're in. But as far as health, like, good to go. I mean, rarely do we have any issues at all. Twin City Gubby said, or buy all your shrimp from Flip Aquatics, and they've already done the hard work for you. Well, I appreciate that, King. Always good to hear from you and see you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for everyone else that's tuning in. And feel free to ask some questions. I mean, we definitely want to get into this topic and unwrap it a little bit more, and really just see what you guys have going on in your fish rooms, and just see, like, if you guys have issues, let's talk about it. Let's go through it and let's unwrap some controversial things and really get to the bottom of it. Let me see if I got some questions. Zane says, LOL, love you, Rob. Love you too, Zane. Thank you for being here. What'd somebody say, man tap? I don't even know what that is. Probably something not good. I always get myself in trouble by reading comments. Karen, my fish always end up eating my shrimp. Yeah, that'll happen. People ask me all the time, what shrimp or what fish are safe with shrimp? And I said, if the fish can fit the shrimp in its mouth, it's not safe. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. There's some fish that won't bother shrimp, but like, they could potentially get a taste for them later on. Plecos would be most of the time okay with shrimp, but sometimes they can go on a killing frenzy. So you never know. Natasha said, I live in Texas and our water is really hard. So this is why, like, if you're using tap water, Neocaridina all day, because Neos love hard water. Depending on what the GH and KH is ratio, you could, it's a lot easier. Oops, sorry. Let me mute my phone. So again, like Neos, for as far as the least amount of work possible, Neos can be the way to go, right? Using your tap water, easy setup, but for taking the time and like building the right setup, I'm telling you, Caridina all day, easy peasy, like not a problem at all. What's going on, Annie? She said, I finally got some assorted Neos from you guys. I am so in love with them. I received some babies and a buried shrimp. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on the babies and the buried shrimp. And thank you for the order. Always appreciate it. And I love hearing successful stories. Natasha said, I really do need to get an RODI unit this time around to make sure they thrive this time. And, you're never going to regret it. If you take the time to do things the right way ahead of time, RO water, even if you're buying distilled water from the store, whatever you want to do, if you take the time to remineralize your water and have the right substrate and, put some plants and stuff in there, like, you're going to reap the rewards of that. And a lot of people just are impatient. Like, that's just a problem with our society in general. Like, if we want something, we want it now. It's easy to be like, oh, like, I need this. Oh, let me jump on Amazon and order it. Or I really want this. Let me go buy it here. Or let's run to the store and get this. We're very much a want it now type of society. And so with animals, I wish I'd slow people down. Like for me, even like I really want to get a 300-gallon setup and get a shop mascot that we could put in there, whether it's goldfish, turtles, shop cat, whatever it is. Like, I want to just have it now, but at the end of the day, like, I need to know that my time, it's valuable to me, and I don't want to just rush something because I'm so busy. And so I just need to slow down, make sure I have the right information, make sure I'm prepared, and then go from there and make sure it happens. And so, yeah. So definitely doing it right at the beginning makes a lot of sense. And I did see we got a new member in the house, Natasha. Let me see, where did that come in? There it is. Natasha, thank you so much for becoming a part of our shrimp family here and sign up for membership. Really do appreciate it. And I think we're doing really good. Again, members, I talked to you guys about this last week. I've been slacking as far as YouTube membership specific content goes. I've been slacking as far as any YouTube content goes. But like I said, we got Tyler in the other room. He's training. He's going to be taking a lot of responsibilities off my shoulders. And our other two team leads for shipping and livestock, they're doing a phenomenal job. And so they've taken a lot of pressure off me. Amanda is going to be able to help me a lot because now she won't have to do customer service. And so really in these next couple weeks, we're gonna really start hitting it home and doing some big stuff. And so I'm really excited for that. But let me look at membership. So we're at 100 members. So we need to get back on track because I think our highest was I want to say we were up to 110 was our peak. So Natasha, really appreciate it. And now Natasha was a member before she rejoined. And so thank you so much for that. And always appreciate having new faces and people back in the membership group. And I actually shared a video there recently for all you members that were there. I hope you guys were able to watch that. We did a new video for our marketing campaign on Facebook and Instagram and all that. And I felt like it was a pretty good video. So I wanted to see what everyone thought about it. And I want to use it as the trailer for Flip Aquatics YouTube channel. And so a lot of positive reviews, but I just haven't got around to updating that yet. Science Gal Aquatics, good morning to you, Carrie and Jesse. Love you guys. Appreciate all the help that they do for the fish community, fish tube. And they're just phenomenal people. Sand Pie said, I find even with the perfect water and substrate for Caridina, it doesn't guarantee they'll thrive. Some of the time they will survive but not produce as much if the tank isn't matured. So yeah, I mean, just to give you an example, I agree and I disagree all at the same time. A mature tank is obviously better, right? So a tank that you've had set up for a while, it's got algae in it, it's well cycled, obviously that tank is going to do better than a tank that is just set up right away. But for us, we import, I don't even know. Let's say for a normal import, we'll get 10,000 Caridina shrimp or less, maybe 5 to 10,000. I really don't know what the number is, but we get all those shrimp in. There's no way for us to have, 80 tanks ready to go for them. We could have them ready, but there's no way to go from 0 shrimp to 200 shrimp in a tank and that tank be cycled and ready to go for those shrimp. and vice versa. Like sometimes, like, you know, we got to change out substrate between imports because the substrate's going bad. And so we don't have time for that tank to sit 60 days or 30 days before we get another import in. And so we actually use just live bacteria. And a good thing to know with Caridina shrimp is the low pH. So like the reason you're using buffering substrate is to bring the pH down. And so when the pH is below 7, ammonia is not toxic up to a certain point. And so even if a shrimp tank isn't completely cycled, that ammonia isn't going to kill the shrimp unless it's in really high numbers. To get a Caridina shrimp tank cycled takes a long time. It's a very slow, monotonous process. So if you have the time to, you know, put a couple of mystery snails in a tank, add some live bacteria, and let it go for 30 days and make sure the algae is growing really good, make sure the snails are doing good, then that's a lot better than just putting shrimp in there. But speaking from someone that does it, like, you know, we treat for bacterial infection. That kills all bacteria in the tank. And then we have to do new bacteria in. It's definitely possible. Like, we do it every day. We have 100 tanks in our Caridina room, and all those tanks pretty much aren't cycled when they get new shrimp in them. And we're about 45 days in. And if we have, you know, 10 tanks that have deaths in it, like that's a high number. And it might be 1 death per tank. And that's, you know, 10 deaths in a room that has 15,000 shrimp. And so Caridina overall, like, and you know, I'm not just blowing smoke here, are much easier than Neocaridina. And it really comes down to, like, you know, maybe it's the source. So like one big thing to do with Caridina shrimp, wherever you plan on buying them from, whether it's me, whether it's the guy down the street, whoever it is, go to that person and be like, what substrate do you use? What remineralizer do you use? What TDS do you keep your shrimp tanks at? Like, ask them all these questions and they're going to tell you the answer. And then you're going to be successful because you're going to match whatever that person's doing. So for us, I can tell you exactly, like, we're using Brightwell shrimp substrate, or Brightwell Rio Oscuro. That's what we're using. We are using salty shrimp, GH and KH plus. And we remineralize to about 150 TDS, and you're great. Good to go. You're not going to have any issues at all. So if you get shrimp from us, I'll tell you 100% that's what you do. And if you don't have success, like, I got your back. If somehow those shrimp don't do good in there, like maybe it was a bacterial infection, maybe it was something else, who knows? But we're going to work with you to figure out what happened, and we're going to help you out, and we're going to make sure that you're successful. And so yeah, Michael becoming a YouTube member, aka a fish family member. And so Michael Clark, thank you so much for signing up to become a member. Really appreciate you. And yeah, like I said, we are getting back on track. My goal is every week to do a member video. Granted, I haven't been doing that, but that's my goal. And it's literally like a vlog style video. So like, it's just me walking around in a room talking about stuff. You guys can ask questions, and the next week I could do a video specifically on the question you had. And usually they're anywhere from 5 to 15-minute videos. Not like crazy edited or anything like that. Just, you know, nice transitions, like from one point to another. And it's good stuff. So if you guys are interested, thank you. Would love to have you a part of the family. And for all of you that signed up, I really do appreciate it. And he said, do you still post the membership discounts on the first of the month? So Annie, I don't, but the discount code is still good. So if you need the discount code, all you have to do is email me, rob@flipaquatics.com, and I will send it to you right away. But in a perfect world, I would send them on the first. I just, with my schedule and with everything going on, I just kind of got out of the habit of doing it. And so I need to get back in that habit. But if you need it, let me know, and I got you. Because one of the biggest perks of being a member, or not, I wouldn't say the biggest perk, but a nice perk is you either get a 10% off coupon, a 15% off coupon, or a 20% off coupon code that is good all year. Like, you can use it whenever. And so, yeah. Russell asked a really good question. What does a bacterial infection look like on shrimp, and how do you treat it? So we'll use Neos, for example. Actually, so it's really hard to see it. I mean, that's the honest question, or the honest answer. It's really hard to tell if they have a bacterial infection by look. But if you could see it, if the shrimp was clear enough, they would just look like a cloudy body. So like, you know, instead of being transparent or like you can see its organs really good, it would be like a milky color. And that means that, hey, it has a bacterial infection. But when you get into like the Caridina shrimp that have solid shells, or Neo shrimp that are really dark colored, like the blacks, the blues, the greens, things like that, it gets really hard to tell if they have it. So what I always say is, if you have shrimp and you're doing everything right, you have the right setup, you have the right water change process, your temperature is good, like all these things are matching up, and you're having unexplained deaths, 99% of the time it's bacterial infection. Bacteria is a non-visible enemy that you're constantly fighting. So we actually use Maricin and Maricin 2 from Fritz Aquatics. I think it's under Mardell. But those two products wipe out any bacterial infection. We treat it at half dose, and we only do one treatment. Unless we're still having deaths, then we do a second treatment on day 3, and then we do a water change and turbo starter live bacteria on day 5. If you have a quarantine tank, it's always good to move shrimp to the quarantine tank, treat with Maricin in that tank, because Maricin kills all bacteria, good or bad. And so I'm actually going to do a whole video dedicated to bacterial infections coming up. I'm going to redo my whole breeding series and shrimp keeping series. And so it'll be a lot of good information, and it will be really good for me too, because when we get emails about, hey, I think I have a bacterial infection, we can just link a video instead of, you know, typing out a whole response like, hey, like this is what's going on, like this could be it, you could try that. And so just having dedicated videos helps not only me and my customers and all the people that follow us on YouTube, but the people that just randomly stumble upon our videos. Like it just helps the hobby in general. Game Caesar. So you did miss the talk. I'm more than happy to readdress it, because I'm sure a lot of new people have been tuning in and tuning out. And so at the end of the day, Neocaridina are easier to keep. Really Panda said just stumbled. Hopefully I don't have you all messed up, but feel free, keep asking the questions. Keep the questions coming. We'll keep answering them, and we'll go through this. So just going back, and I did see Primetime Aquatics in here. Jason, always good to see my buddy in here. So Jason, thanks for tuning in and being a part of the stream. Really do appreciate it. But as far as Neocaridina go, Neos are easier Neos aren't easier. But the reason people think they're easier is because of this. Neos adapt to a wider range of parameters. So if you're just going to set up a shrimp tank, or not even set up a shrimp tank, if you're just going to go to an auction and be like, oh, I kind of want to buy shrimp today, there's a bag that's going for cheap, I'm going to get that for $5. Like, if that's the way you're going to do it, Neos are going to be easier for you, because they're going to adapt to a wider range of parameters. But Neos, on the contrary, Neos have a lot of parasites. They have a lot more diseases. There's a lot more instability with them. Like, you know, as far as, you know, keeping them healthy, there's a lot more that goes into it. Now, if you have a guy breeding shrimp down the street that has a Neocaridina colony and he shares the same tap water as you, and he's been using tap water for 3 years, there's odds are, like, if you get those shrimp and you do the same thing he's doing and you're just using tap water and he says you can change 50% in one day, like, those shrimp are going to be bulletproof. And obviously those are going to be easier than most shrimp. But if you're the average hobbyist that gets online and orders shrimp, odds are whatever you're ordering, if it's Neocaridina, Caridina is going to be easier than that. And let me tell you why. Caridina throughout the entire world have to be bred in aquariums with buffering substrate. They just have to. Remineralized water, kept inside. Neocaridina throughout the world are put in ponds outside. They're kept in, you know, swimming pools, in greenhouses. Like, they're bred in all these different parameters. People don't use RO water. They use their well water. Every person's well water is different. You know, there's 1,000 variables on where Neocaridina are coming from, what parameters they were kept in, how healthy they are. Because they're in the sun, they struggle with allobiopsidae. It's an invisible algae type that comes out and kills them. And so like there's all these things that line up that make Neocaridina as like more of a wild card. Like you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how it's going to do. And so for Caridina, no matter where they're bred indoors in aquariums with buffering substrate, with remineralized water that is started with RO water. Like that's just how it is. It doesn't matter where you get them from. And so when you buy a crystal shrimp, you know that crystal shrimp was bred indoors with a TDS between 100 and 150, maybe up to 175. It likes water between 68 and 72. Like this is consistent throughout the entire world of keeping crystal shrimp. And so when you buy that crystal shrimp, you know what to do. There's no question marks. And so if you have the right substrate, if you have the buffering substrate, the remineralized water, you're going to be successful. I mean, that's just how it is. And if you're not, then potentially, you're fighting a bacterial infection, or the person you got them from, potentially, did something wrong or kept them in a really weird way. The problem that happens with Caridina is when people try to recreate the wheel. So people will buy Caridina shrimp and be like, oh, I'm going to try to keep them in my tap water. Well, obviously they're not going to be successful, or rarely they're going to be successful. And so there's a lot that goes into it. So the biggest thing to take away from this is if you want to spend the time to set up a shrimp tank, and if you aren't afraid to buy the substrate and learn how to remineralize RO water, which is super easy, or take the time to go to the store and get jugs of distilled water. If you're willing to do those things, Caridina are going to be so much easier than Neos are ever going to be. And so like Monty said, I want to start with Caridina, but I'm so nervous due to everyone saying that they're so much harder. They're not. I promise you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video on setting up a basic Caridina setup. And with that setup, you can pretty much keep any Caridina shrimp to an extent. Now, granted, if you get Caridina shrimp from a guy down the street that keeps them in 7.2 pH, been keeping them that way for 3 years, obviously they're not going to do well in the setup that I tell you to keep in, because I'm going based on 90% of or 95% of the rest of the world, how they keep them. So there's always going to be variables, always. So just know that. And so if what I always say too, and this is something I'll repeat for the rest of my life, if you're going to buy shrimp from Flip Aquatics, then you want to come to me for information, because I will tell you exactly how to keep our shrimp alive. And if for whatever reason you do whatever I say and your shrimp aren't thriving, they're not breeding, they're dying, whatever, I got your back. Like, I'll send you new shrimp. We'll figure it out together. Like, we'll do what we have to do to make sure you're successful. But if you listen to what I say and then go buy from a random person on the internet, there's a chance that those shrimp won't do well for you, because who knows how that person's keeping them. So wherever you plan on getting shrimp, that is the person you want to get the information from. If you're going to get extreme orange-eyed blue tigers with triple band, like, I don't know, that's just a made-up shrimp, and only one person sells them, you don't want to like pick my setup and set it up and then buy those shrimp. You want to go to that person, that guy or girl, and be like, how do you do this? And hopefully they're going to tell you, because if they don't tell you, then they must not care if you're successful or not. They're just trying to make a few bucks off their shrimp. But most of the time they'll tell you, and then you'll be able to match those parameters. So Monty said, did you say you use salty shrimp GH and cage? I thought Caridina need no cage. So for the record, for Caridina shrimp, 99% of all Caridina shrimp use GH only. So salty shrimp GH plus. The salty shrimp GH and cage plus is for Neocaridina. And so you don't want the cage. So just so that all of you listening know this too, KH is basically a way to stabilize pH. So if you put KH in a tank that has buffering substrate, the substrate is actually going to absorb that KH so that it can influence the pH. So KH doesn't have a purpose in Caridina tanks. Now, in the past, I had super hardy crystal shrimp, and I had an abundance of GH and KH, so it was just easier. I just used it on those tanks. And I mean, they did fine, but you're creating a little bit of instability. So like with the GH in there, the pH is going to be a little bit higher, and then the substrate brings it down. Like, it's not right. So you don't want to do it if you don't have to do it. And so GH plus not GH and KH, just GH plus is what you'll want for Caridina shrimp. Let's see what Caleb said. Caleb said, I've spent thousands on shrimp setups, accessories, and have nothing to show for it. No shrimp living. I still don't know why I keep losing them. My water parameters are perfect. Maybe they're getting hot. So, I mean, we keep our room at 68 to 72 all year round. Doesn't matter if it's 4th of July. Doesn't matter if it's December 31st. Like, that room is 68 to 72 all the time. And so, yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to know. So, like, this is the thing too. And I'm not saying, Caleb, I'm not saying at all that you're doing this. So many people will say, like, my shrimp are dying, my water's perfect. I was like, well, what does perfect mean? What are you remineralizing with? How are you checking the water? What's your source of RO water? Like, you know, there's a lot of things that go into this. Are you using a heater? You know, do you have a shrimp set up in an old tank that had copper in it, and now the copper is in the silicone and it's leaching out into the aquarium? There's so many things that could be contributing to this. But like I said, we have 100 Caridina tanks, and we refill them every 3 months with shrimp. And we're able to keep 95, 96% of every single one of those shrimp that we bring in alive. And if it was really hard, you know, we'd keep 75% alive or something like that. So there's definitely something going on there, Caleb, that is causing them to not be successful, whatever that is. Maybe you're using a 5-gallon tank, and, you know, your room fluctuates in temperature. So, like, you know, a 5-gallon tank is going to change temperature quicker. So maybe in the morning it's 68 degrees in there. Maybe by, you know, midnight it went up to 82 degrees. And no shrimp is going to survive those huge swings of parameters. Maybe when you're topping off with water, you're not using straight RO water. You're using remineralized water, and the parameters are going through the roof. Like, there's so many things that go into it. And if you just have the basics down, like I said, if you have these 10 basics down, you're going to be successful with shrimp 99% of the time. Sometimes you just get unhealthy shrimp and there's nothing you could do, but it's very rare. Again, like, out of 6,000 shrimp we bring in, if we lose 100 of those, I'm like, ooh, guys, you know, what are we doing? Or if we lose 500 of those, I'm like, really, like, guys, like, what happened here? Like, how can we turn this thing around? So yeah, so it's just a lot of stuff going on. Even if you live somewhere with soft water, Washington, Oregon, you never know what might be in your water. So here's the thing that I always say with tap water, well water. It doesn't matter what it is. We'll start with tap water. Tap water is inconsistent. Why? Because you never know what's going on at the water treatment plant. I always say like this, like, the water here in Warren is perfect. We use it in almost all of our tanks, but we have two $3,000 filtration systems that remove any contaminants that could potentially go into it. So my water treatment plant is great, but, you know, every once in a while there's a bacteria bloom in the water pipes, and that bacteria could get really bad and, you know, hurt people. So they'll do a big flush through the system, and they'll kill all that bacteria. And they know what they're using to treat it isn't harmful to me. It's not harmful to my dog, but it could be catastrophic to a shrimp tank. And so you just never know what's going into the tap water. And, you know, different parts of the year could change the water parameters. So it's, you know, it's not consistent. And so, you know, it's just, RO water is a safe bet. You know, no matter what, RO water is going to be good. You put some remineralizer in there, it's going to make the perfect water. Now, well water, a lot of people can argue like, oh, well water is perfect. It comes right from my ground. Like, you know, it's going to be the same all the time. Well, let's say you live in a farmland where, you know, different times of the year, they spray manure in their fields and pesticide, and, you know, that water or that stuff goes somewhere. You know, water comes down, it sucks it into the ground. You know, a little bit of that's going to get into, you know, your well, and, you know, it's made so that if it does get into a well, it's not going to harm you, but could kill your shrimp. You know, invertebrates are a little bit more sensitive than even fish. And so there's so many things that go into it. So distilled water works if you don't have an RO system. Yeah, distilled water is great. If I just could use distilled water all the time, I would, but it's so expensive because my understanding of it is distilled water is like water that's heated up, it evaporates, and then it goes down, and then that's the water you get. So that's as pure as it gets. You know, RODI water is actually filtering the water, so like pushing it through filtration to take everything out. The other one, it's evaporating and then it's good to go. And that might not be completely accurate, so don't quote me on that. But that's always been my understanding of it. I haven't actually like went to a distilled water factory and saw how they produced it. But that's always been my understanding. But when we go to trade shows, it's such a risk to use the RO water that they provide for you. And so if we don't have a ton of setups, we always buy distilled water. We'll go to Walmart, get 50 jugs of water and use that. And so, yeah, distilled water is the way to go. And it's so cheap, 50 cents a gallon, $1 a gallon, whatever it is, like you're good to go. Boom Boom said, is 74 okay? I still live with my parents and they are thermostat hawks. I know the feeling. You're good. They keep it at 76, but I convinced them to go down to 74. Yeah, absolutely, man. 74 is not bad. And, you know, I'm sure at night it gets a little bit cooler. So, like, your tank's going to be between, like, 72, 74. And, yeah, I think that's fine. In the winter, it's probably going to be a little bit cooler. And so, yeah. So, 68 to 72 is just what I recommend. If you go a little bit one way or the other, most likely it's not going to be an issue. Really, the only time I really start seeing issues in Neos is when you go, like, 78, 80. Now, granted, if you go up to those temperatures, you're going to get a lot more breeding, but a lot more can go wrong. And so there's things to consider. So like a lot of people, if they're having trouble with breeding, they bump their temperature up and then all of a sudden it gets them like moving, active, breeding, things like that. And so, yeah, so you can definitely keep shrimp in warmer temperatures, especially the Neocaridina. But I always use the analogy, it's like using nitrous oxide on a car. Like, it's a lot of fun going super fast, but if you hit a speed bump or something like that, like it just derails the whole thing and, you know, crash and burn. Same thing with the shrimp tank. Like 80 degrees, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like things are breeding, things are going great, but one bacteria bloom and you lost everything. So it's just one thing to consider. So Boom Boom said, I got some shrimp and didn't acclimate them right, but they are doing very well. Probably just some hardy shrimp. And so with acclimating, I mean, that's a whole nother topic. Slow and steady wins the race. But when we import shrimp, you know, we get in, 200 in a bag. We float them and then we cut the bag and dump them right in. It's what we do. And I would never recommend that to a customer because I know that my setup matches what their setup is in Taiwan. So I know based on all my past experiences that my water parameters are pretty much perfect to their water parameters. And so we're not going to shock the shrimp. And so that's why we're able to do it. But, people at home might have a setup that they're just trying to get to work. And, it is what it is. And so those people, I would never recommend just cut the bag and dump them in because their parameters might be 500 TDS where ours is, 200, 150. And so yeah, so things happen. And as long as you don't drastically do something, shrimp usually do pretty well. Temperature control would be the hardest for me to have Caridinas. Yes. So I get it 100%. So if I lived in a house where it's just hot, it's like 76 degrees, 78 degrees, what I would do is I would get the biggest tank that I could fit, like 55 gallon, and do shrimp in a 55 gallon tank because the water in that tank isn't going to change temperature very frequently. Like it's going to be nice, slow, gradual changes. And so when it's cold at night and hot during the day, it kind of just stays the same temperature 24 hours a day. And there's ways to do it. Like you could put a fan so that blows right on the surface of the tank, and that would help you control the temperature too, or keep it a little bit lower. So there's definitely ways around it. But if you have a problem keeping your temperature below, say 76 degrees in your house, then it would be a difficult thing to keep Caridina shrimp in the long run. And so that's a really good point. So if you take temperature and I guess lack of setup, those two things are easier for Neos, everything else is easier for Caridina. So those would be the only two times that it would be easier to just do Neos. Shrimp are 100% vegetarians. No, shrimp are scavengers. They will literally eat whatever is in front of them. Who would waste perfectly good nitrous on a car? I don't know. Somebody. I mean, there's definitely people out there. Caleb said my mystery snails, Otocinclus, and plants are thriving in the same tank. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like invertebrates are invertebrates. Like snails are super easy. Otocinclus aren't actually easy. So the fact that those are not doing good and the others weren't. Let's see what your parameters are like. So it's a 20 long, no heater, using RODI with a 3-stage TDS meter, reanalyzed with salties. My pH is 5.8 to 6.2. I have a digital pH meter, GH 3 to 5, KH 0, TDS 90 to 100. I use TD. So, Caleb, let's do this. First question would be, what shrimp are you trying to keep in there? Because if you're keeping Taiwan bees, I would say like, yeah, I think that would work pretty well. But if you're trying to keep crystals in there, I would say like, yeah, that's probably not the perfect water parameters for them. And so the next thing I would ask you is, what's your maintenance schedule like? When you do a water change, are you doing 50% water change, 20% water change, 5%? Do you do it 3 times a week? Do you do it once a month? Like what are we looking at here? And then also, how much are you feeding? When are you feeding? What type of food are you feeding? Like all these things play a major point in the overall success of the tank. And so the tank is in a room with an AC, but it does get up to 75 times, which is fine. Like that's still in it. Which snail is best for Neocaridina? Depends on your setup. If you don't want snails breeding, I would say mystery snails. Also, they're great algae eaters. They eat leftover food. So there's a lot of good thing about mystery snails. The other one I would say would be Malaysian trumpet snails. They turn the substrate for you. They really don't overpopulate, especially if you're feeding right. So, like, yeah, between Malaysian trumpet snails and mystery snails, yawned. Need some more coffee. Nereid snails are great too. The only thing with nereid snails is they're not going to be able to cycle a tank for you. They're a little bit more sensitive. But nereid snails won't reproduce either. So that's a big positive for them. I don't know. I really like mystery snails right now because they lay their clutch of eggs above the water. So it's really easy to pull them out and not hatch them if you don't want them. And so, and they're big and cool. Like every time that I would set up a tank for a school, I would take a mystery snail. And that was the favorite thing in the tank. They always call him Gary and they just love it. So like, mystery snails for me, there's so many different colors. So I would almost always go with mystery snails. But Malaysian trumpet snails I really like. Nereid snails I really like too. Like in all my plant tanks, I have nereid snails. Rabbit snails are a favorite too, but they're a little bit more sensitive, so you need to have the right setup for them. But I really do like rabbit snails. We actually have some really cool rabbit snails. I think we have the golds, the yellows, and the chocolates and the blues. So we actually have like four types. We have some mixed in types too. Metakenzie, I think that's how you say it. That's probably not at all how you say it, but thank you for tuning in from Indonesia, and I appreciate the support. Mystery snails have way more characters as a game. I agree. I love mystery snails. I really do. Let's see what Unit T1 said. I got locally bred Neos and Caridina, so I'm able to keep both species in the same tank. I have 8 5-gallons with at least 2 different shrimp in each. Man, you got a ton. That's 16. That's 16 different shrimp. So what happens is lack of oxygen to the brain brings out yawning. So what happens is I get on rolls and I just keep talking without breathing, and I think that's what makes me yawn. So I need to remember to breathe. Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're willing to do the work up front, RO unit, distilled water from the store, remineralizer, buffering substrate, preferably Brightwell shrimp soil, just because that's what we use and we love it. And they also sponsor us in full transparency. But if they didn't sponsor us, I would still recommend them because I love their substrate. So if you're willing to get those things, get your tank set up, take the time to get it cycled, add some shrimp to it, live bacteria, all that good stuff. It's going to be easier. It's going to be easier than ordering 10 cherries and trying to breed 10 cherries. You order 10 cherries, 3 of them die. They do okay. They breed. Now you got 50. It is what it is. It works out. But if you want to guarantee like this is going to work every time, Caridina it is. Every time. Every time. Is there a Caridina species that is hardier like the crystals? So the hardiest of hardy as far as Caridina go, which is going to sound crazy. Let me go with the easiest ones that are cheap first. Tangerine tigers, pretty cheap. Orange, good color, like them. Crystal reds, crystal blacks, and golden bees. Those are kind of all in the same category. Those are all fairly easy. And then from there, I'd recommend pintos. So like your galaxy pintos, your red pintos, your black pintos, because there's some genetic diversity that goes into making those shrimp. So those shrimp overall have better genetics. So they're healthier and they're easier to adapt to a range of parameters. So galaxies, crystals, and tangerine tigers would be the 3 that I'd recommend. Now, obviously, if you're just getting into Caridina, I wouldn't want you spending $50 on a galaxy shrimp. But if you're that person that's like, I just want to do, I really like the way these look and I want to keep them, they're actually pretty easy to keep. What type of shrimp should I buy? My water is super soft. So I would say, tell me what your water is. GHK, or using tap water, like what's going on there. We talked about tap water earlier and how inconsistent it can be with, the city treating for certain things and can kill your shrimp. So it's a loaded question, but for the most part, soft water would be Caridina shrimp. You just have to make sure you have the right setup. Make sure you have the substrate, all that kind of stuff. Ooh, you need a drink. Let's see what Eduardo said. This looks like an interesting comment. Eduardo Antonio Orego Costa. Thank you for tuning in. Rob, can you explain why the aquarium live fish is literally short on stock? I'm wondering why, because I've ordered from you and saw that somewhere out of stock. Thanks again. So, and this is for everybody. The way we do live fish is we restock them every Thursday. So every Wednesday we get in a new order, and every Thursday we restock. So our orders, like if let's say we order, like today we got an order. So we got it from Seagrass. So that order will be 2 weeks until it's restocked next on a Thursday. And then usually we get orders from our main wholesaler that quarantines for us on Wednesday. We let those sit for a week and a day, and then we relist those. And so Thursday is just like our less busy day. We're not shipping. And so we go through and redo all the inventory. So long story short, if you're ever looking for fish, Thursday evening after 5 o'clock is the best day to shop, because that's when we're going to have most things in stock. But a lot of our fish are seasonal, right? So we've been trying to get pea puffers like crazy, and we haven't been able to get them for 2 months. And then there's other ones like chili raspberries are really hard to get right now for some reason. So there's some fish that we're really trying to get and we're just not able to. So hopefully that answers your question. Lack of oxygen to the brain. I'm yawning. What different Caridina can you keep in the same tank that won't inbreed and make blah babies? So, I mean, pretty much all Caridina will interbreed, right? Unless you're doing an mono shrimp that is technically a Caridina and a crystal red. Those aren't going to breed because they're completely different types of shrimp. Or a bamboo shrimp isn't going to breed with a crystal red. So there's some variables, but for the most part, all Caridina are going to breed together. So if you breed Taiwan bees, if you put a bunch of Taiwan bees together, like blue bolts, extreme black King Kongs, red King Kongs, deep blue bolts, if you mix all those together, they're going to breed and they're just going to produce more red King Kongs, blue bolts, black King Kongs, things like that. So you can always mix Taiwan bees together. Most pintos you could probably mix together, but if you mix a galaxy with a regular spotted head pinto, you're probably going to get some funky ones in there too. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Crystals you can keep together, but when you breed red to black, potentially you're going to start getting like brownish colored crystals, which aren't desirable. You can breed crystals the Taiwan bees, and you'll get what's called Michelins, which look just like crystals. But on the next round, like, let me restart because I can sound confusing. I don't want to sound confusing. If you take one crystal red and breed it to one Taiwan bee, let's say a blue bolt, they're going to breed and you're going to get 100% crystal red looking shrimp. But those crystal reds are considered, or not Masuras, my goodness. They're considered Michelins. Now, a Michelin, if you take a Michelin and breed it with a blue bolt, you're going to get, say, 50% blue bolts and 50% Michelins. If you breed two Michelins together, you're going to potentially get 25% blue bolts, maybe 50% Michelins, and 25% crystal reds. And so it kind of gets a little crazy there. So there's definitely some different things that you can do. Primetime Aquatics says at the small scape, you're supposed to be working. So the small scape's in here. You're making me yawn, Rob. I'm sorry. I take it back. I apologize. I'm going to try to breathe better and not yawn. But hopefully you both are enjoying a cup of coffee or a cup of whatever you drink. Speaking of that, I've been hooked. My brother got me hooked on Starbucks has a green tea matcha latte. And you do 2 pumps of vanilla and a shot of, I guess not a shot. You just add soy milk to it, and talk about delicious. So I've been getting that. Like, I'm on my way home from work, and every day on my way home from work, I pass a Starbucks. I'm just like, let's go over here. Let's get one real quick. So it's been bad, but yeah. So a little off topic, typical for me. Mark McMillan, thank you so much for becoming a member. Really appreciate you there. And, it's always awesome to see our little family growing. And, I think today's been a great conversation, and I think we've really addressed some things. So feel free. I'm going to do a post on the community tab of Flip Aquatics of what we want to talk about next week. And we'll kind of make it a group discussion every week. And then we'll decide on our topic for the next live stream. So that's a good way for you guys to participate, and really focus in on things that you guys want to see. And so that's what we got going on. Really good to see some familiar faces in here. Primetime Aquatics, The Small Escape. Thank you guys for tuning in. I don't know if I saw Taylor from Simply Beta, but usually she's in here lurking. So if Taylor's here, shout out to her as well. And then Eduardo becoming a member too. So thank you and welcome to the Shrimp family. Appreciate you guys. And as always, I just love growing our little community here. And you guys are just phenomenal. So thank you so much for tuning in. Bia Steele, I don't know how to say it, but we're just wrapping up. If you want to catch the replay, it's going to have all the information. And I even have it reposting the chat so you could read through the comments and see what people are saying. So a lot of good information today. A really good talk. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Thank you for tuning in. You guys make it a phenomenal day. And as always, God bless. And we'll see you on the next video. And as always, I'll catch you on the flip side. We'll see you guys later.